If you're like me, you're probably seeing this style of footage everywhere. Directors, brands, photographers, wedding videographers, skateboarders, the list goes on. They're all shooting on these cameras from the 90s. The most popular of which is Mini DV. This is a Hi-8 camera, or a digital 8. Given that this is a 30-year-old camera with 30-year-old electronics, and it's 2026, is it still worth it? All these cameras use something very similar to this. This is a mini cassette. This one is Hi-8. The camera has a digital sensor, which then prints that in zeros and ones onto these analog tapes. And then we take these analog tapes and re-digitize them so that you can view it on your computer. Inefficient? Yeah, a little bit. Now, I'd argue there's been a steep climb in the popularity of these cameras over the past 5 or 6 years. A lot of people my age raided their parents' closets and found these 30-year-old cameras and are now trying to use them. At least that's what I did. First time I ever rode a bike was shot on this camera. Let go! Full circle. Now, as fun as that is, trying to resurrect a camera from years past, Mini DV and Hi-8 adjacent cameras are kind of a nightmare to use today in 2026. Just countless headaches trying to adapt this camera to new softwares and trying to circumvent dying technology. Now, this won't be a how-to video for Mini DV. There are plenty of great YouTube videos online that showcase the steps and the software and all the hardware it takes to use these cameras. I will show you how I am able to plug this into my computer and use it, because that's part of the headache. So first you have to understand this camera uses an iLink port, which is FireWire. There's also composite, but I prefer using the FireWire. So then I have to use an iLink cable to FireWire 800. That goes into this Thunderbolt 2 dock, because there's a FireWire 800 right here. You then take a Thunderbolt 2 cable with a Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3 adapter, and then plug that into your computer of choice, but make sure that computer is not running macOS 26. I believe this is a 2018 Mac Mini. Why do I go through all of this? You can adapt this however you want. There used to be a FireWire to Thunderbolt 2 dongle, which you can plug into Thunderbolt 2 to 3 dongle. It gets messy, but there are other ways to do this. I had to buy a Thunderbolt 2 dock because the dongle was discontinued, and eBay, the prices were astronomical. Like I said, I couldn't use my current computer because macOS 26 no longer supports FireWire. I used to have an old MacBook, not a MacBook Pro, not an Air, a MacBook that had FireWire on it. One cable, it was super easy. It stopped working. One of my tapes just totally got tangled days before a shoot, and you can't buy these things in a store. You have to get it offline. There are a few places where you can go in person, but most of the world, you have to get this online. It just feels like every time I want to use this camera, there's a new headache, a new obstacle that I have to jump over, research, and figure out how to make this work. So then the question is, why do I still use it? I know the simplest solution out here is those FPV recorders that plug composite into the camera. I've done something similar. I made my own jerry-rigged version of that. I don't love it. The composite is not to the same resolution as Mini DV, and that may sound silly given what we're talking about, but there's like an aspect ratio difference. You can get to 720 versus 480p at such a small resolution. That kind of matters, to me at least. And also, those FPV recorders are also insanely expensive. Now, I can't speak for all of my generation. But what I really care about is authenticity. I feel like every time I use an emulator, it is so obvious. Like, you as the audience can see right through it. It's almost predictable. Maybe that's a skill issue. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. To be fair, authenticity does not negate accessibility. This camera, I'm really hesitant to reach for it. But then there are also times where this camera checks every box and it really becomes a no-brainer. So getting back to that main question of, is it worth it? I think the characteristics of this camera can outweigh the usability. Frankly, that's the only reason you would want to use this camera, is for its unique characteristics and quality that you can't achieve elsewhere. Maybe you're great at emulating footage, I'm not. And so I'm gonna reach for this camera because it's the real deal. If I have the ability to further communicate an idea, a feeling, a vibe with this camera, 1000% of the time, I'm going to use it. This isn't a new principle in the film industry. It's all over. It's the reason we use Cine-modded Canon FD lenses, or why Paul Thomas Anderson wanted to use Toda lights in One Battle After Another. It's why we shoot film, photography, and video. There are characteristics to this old equipment that you can't really replicate. So yes, sometimes the juice is worth the squeeze. And I think Mini DV, although a nightmare, is worth the squeeze. Maybe your one takeaway from this video is that you probably shouldn't be shooting Mini DV. And that's totally fair. I don't blame you. It's not for everybody. But if you have the patience and you really care about the aesthetic, I would encourage you to go purchase a Mini DV camera or find a friend who has one and try and shoot it the way it was intended. So yeah, that's just my quick PSA on Mini DV, Hi-8, old 90s cameras. They're awesome until they're not. But part of the journey is trying to make it awesome for as long as you can. I really think this video is more just my ongoing effort to push people to use older cameras. Hopefully this pushed you. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe. I read every comment. I try and reply to all the good ones. Yeah, I'll see you next week.